Hello, I will be presenting my final analysis project for Theory 4. I chose to do my project on Charles Koechlin's Sonata for Horn and Piano, Opus 70, focusing on the first movement. A little bit about the composer. Charles Koechlin was born in Paris and had an affinity for music at a young age that was influenced by his family. He began his formal education at the Collège de la Croix, but unfortunately his studies were cut short due to tuberculosis. During his recovery, he studied counterpoint, harmony, and fugue, which soon influenced him to pursue a career in music. In 1890, he entered the Paris Conservatoire, where he began studying under a few people. During his time there, Koechlin became part of a group of composers, which later became known as the Apaches or the Apache. While Koechlin began composing, his early works were a blend of Romanticism and Impressionism. About the piece, as a horn player myself, this sonata has been on my radar for a little while. It is really interesting tonally and is something that I want to strive for to play one day. This sonata took over 7 years to complete, with the first performance featuring Edmond Ontregu on horn and Edouard Gairy on piano. The sonata contains an opening phrase that lifts the listener into a legendary and heraldic and mythic aura. I find it interesting how this horn sonata is romantically couched in a modern idiom that includes open fourths and fifths to create a luminescent and airy texture. And most importantly of all, the timbre of the horn in the sonata complements the piano's eloquence. Here's the link to listen to the sonata and my analysis. It is important to take note that the sonata doesn't follow typical sonata form and is more in the form of a quasi-sonata with an exposition, a development, and a recapitulation. I noticed that the score is missing accidentals in a couple of places. For example, the measure after Sunver following rehearsal number 4 is missing a B flat in the horn part. In the opening, measure 1 establishes the key by outlining the tonic chord. There is a consistent use of compound mixed meter throughout the opening, and there is clear conventional motion with a 2-to-1 suspension in the left hand, measures 9 and 10. There is tonic to subdominant motion, with harmonies being pandiatonic and extended tertian. The progression begins in measure 12 in G major with a 2-6-4, followed by 1-6-4, 5-7, a 3 chord, a 7 half diminished 7 chord, a prolonged 4 chord with a 3-6 as an upper neighbor, and ending with a direct modulation to the subdominant key in measure 20, followed by an E5. Measures 24 through 26 moves through E major, and the following measures, the sonata travels through D major and C major, with parallel motion and the use of a C natural pedal in D major. I noticed that in this system, the key signature changes, but it returns to the original key in the following system. Measure 31. It is a key change that is very out of place, possibly a misprint. Measures 34 to 42, C major is prolonged by E flat major by the end of the exposition. The development section begins at rehearsal 4, which is measure 45, with the first appearance of a simple meter, followed by the return of a compound meter, at the second stesso tempo. Later in the development, arpeggiated quartal chords are used in measures 67 through 70. At rehearsal 6, there's a use of parallel chords in the left hand of the piano, followed by, while the right hand of the piano is operating in a different mode, suggesting polytonality, including E Dorian, F Aeolian, and A Dorian. There is a modulation to C Dorian that takes place, as well as a change in note spelling in the horn part from A flat to G sharp, leading to the end of the development section and the beginning of the recapitulation at rehearsal 8. The elements in the recapitulation, the elements of the exposition return in the key of A Dorian, following the same rhythmic structure. At rehearsal 10, it is implied that there is an 18/8 time signature, or there is a missing bar line, considering a 9/8 bar happens prior to rehearsal 10. Towards the end of the recapitulation, the tonic to subdominant motion that was heard in the exposition is heard here, but moving from A Dorian to an E pitch center.